everybody, it's Imogen and welcome back to Colouring Kid. In today's video I wanted to share my technique of putting a pastel base down on the picture and then putting pencil over the top, or just leaving it and having layers of the pastel. But also I wanted to just do a bit of colouring with you, because this is a buddy colour that I'm doing with Kay from Colouring with Kay. And before I get started and talk about those things, I wanted to share with you the progress picture of Kay's picture, because what we've decided to do is in each other's videos we'll share each other's progress pictures. So I will insert that now for you. So as you can see, it's absolutely gorgeous, and I love the direction she's gone with all of her colours and her, you know, black background and then the vibrant colours. So it's absolutely gorgeous, and thank you so much for doing the buddy colour with me, Kay. So the reason we decided to do it was because I had recently just got Mythomorphia and Imagimorphia at the works for about £5 each, and she had got them as well but hadn't started them yet. So we thought it would be a great idea to dive into the book together and colour the same picture. So the picture I'm doing is the fire dragon, which is this one. So for this picture I'm going to kind of talk to you about how I've done the technique. It's quite self-explanatory in terms of how to apply the pastel and, you know, and the pencil and stuff, so I won't kind of be showing you, but I will be talking to you about it. So for this page I have used pastel in the background, and that's chalk pastel, so it's not oil. They're very, very different. So oil pastels are kind of your neo colour ones, not the twos. So the twos, you know, it's kind of the same texture but they're water soluble, whereas this is chalk pastel. So it lays down very well, it's very chalky, and there's pigment within it that works. So what I did was I laid down an orange colour and then I started to go over with pencil. So I'm going to show you and share the colours that I've used for all of the parts in this picture so far, and show you how I apply the pastel. Now I do have a video showing different chalk pastel backgrounds that I've done in my colouring books, and I will link that below, and I will also link the video that I have done, which was about a year ago. I did another buddy colour with Lisa, and it was a picture of Romantic Country 2, and I did share this technique, so I will be explaining it now, but I have done a completely separate video showing that, so I will also link that down below if you want further detail and actual a demonstration of how I have laid the pastel down first and then the pencil over the top. So yeah, I basically went in with my Rembrandt pastels. Now I'll show you them, and when I get round to doing a haul at some point I will be sharing these again. But these are the 60 half stick soft pastels, and they come in a range of 60 colours. I think I've shown them before on the channel, but basically I wasn't very happy with the pigment depth to my other sets that I had. So I had some really cheap ones that was a set of 64 for about £10, and then I had some Rembrandt half sticks that my mum had, and the pigment just wasn't great in those. Obviously with the Rembrandt ones, obviously they are fairly old and the pigment's just kind of decreased over time, but obviously with the, I think they're the Mungio ones, with them being really cheap, the pigment wasn't as good. So I really wanted to invest in some that were worth it and would last a long time. So I did end up going for Rembrandt again, because I absolutely love the ones that my mum had and that I still do use, and I found lots of the colours were the same, and as you can see there's a lovely range of colours. So some of them aren't coming up quite as light as they actually are, so particularly this one here is slightly lighter, and there's some really, really good light tones here, and I have used them a lot both for my art project for the background and that, which was in my completed pages, but also for my colouring. So I have experimented with them quite a lot, and I use them a lot for my Worlds Within Worlds picture as well, which I really enjoyed doing. So if you haven't seen that in my completed pages, you can go ahead and watch that as well, because I've really been into colouring Kirby Roseanne's pictures at the moment, so it's really nice to be able to colour my first picture in this. So yeah, I used the orange colour, I think it might have been this one. trying to think. No, actually it was this one, this orange, which is coming across as quite red on the camera, but it's actually not. But they're really, really protected in this. They're great pastels. I absolutely love them. So I thought I would just clear up a few questions that people have been asking about my process. So with all of my pastel base, I just use cotton balls or cotton pads or cotton buds, which are these, for smaller details. So it's really, really simple. You can either rub the cotton ball or cotton buds up against the chalk pastel and then apply it to the paper, which is what I prefer to do because it's just a lot more controlled, rather than the other method that you can do by getting a craft knife, which I'm just going to reach for here, and shaving off the pigment of the chalk pastel onto the paper and then rubbing it. That's a lot more messy and it gets your fingers a lot more messy, so it's your choice completely what you want to do. But I just find that if you do the latter method, you end up with a lot more pigment dust, pastel dust. So the first method is a lot easier in my opinion. So once you've done that, obviously you rub out any of the lines, so it really doesn't matter if you go over the lines, because as I've done here, I've just rubbed out all of the lines, and to be honest, that is the most time consuming thing, so that's the only downside to it, I guess. The background out of everything so far has taken me the longest. I really like the watercolour effect that it kind of gives. So once I've done the pastel, which is, really basic, you don't need to worry about spending too much time doing it, I then went over with some pencils. So when I did my Worlds Within Worlds page, I used Prismacolor, but for this I wanted to test out my Arteza pencils and see if the Zest-It blend, which I'll talk about in a minute, worked exactly the same, and they did. So I used 4 colours. So this first one was a dark brown, and that's Espresso. Then I used Passion Fruit Red. Then I went in with Venetian Red, and finally Vermilion. So I did those really, really roughly. So if you've ever used Inktense or Neocolours, you know that you don't really need that much if you're then using water. So with these, I kind of just scribbled them on, and it was quite rough. I wouldn't say scribbling, but I didn't spend too much time worrying about whether I was getting into all the tiny spaces and things like that, because once you've done the pencil, you can leave it, but what I prefer to do is go in with a Zest-It blend or a pencil blend. So this one is the Zest-It blend, and this is, I believe, just in the UK. Sorry if you can hear any of my family, but yeah, this is the Zest-It blend used to blend colour pencils, wax pencils and oil pastels. So you can actually use oil pastels, say if you wanted to use them in a background. I wouldn't recommend using them in colouring books, just because it will transfer to the other side. But yeah, that's what I use to then blend it, and what I find is that it then gives this really lovely watercolour effect. And the pastels as well, when you activate them with water, they also give kind of a watercoloury look. So that's kind of what I did for the whole page. So I used a cotton bud to kind of mush it all around. And the way I do that is I take the lid of the Zest-It blend and just get a bit of a cotton ball, and then I put it in so that there's just a tiny bit there. There's also a Zest-It sponge, which this is kind of replicating in a way. I don't have the Zest-It sponge, but then I get a pipette and squeeze a bit of the Zest-It blend into it, put it just a few drops onto it. So what this does is it's just cushioning it. You're not getting a huge amount, which you don't want, because otherwise it will seep to the other side. And then simply what I do is, when I want a bit of the Zest-It blend, I will just dab the cotton bud into it, onto the Zest-It blend, and then dab it off on a bit of paper or another cotton ball, just so that I don't have too much liquid, and then just use it on the paper. So it's really simple, and I'll be showing that on this page, because as well as the background, I have used the Zest-It blend on all of the dragon. So for the dragon, I'm using Prismacolors, and I will tell you those colours in a minute. And I actually have just used a few colours. But what I did just want to clear up was I had a question from MC Hobbit about whether I use a fixative for my pastels, and I don't use fixative at all. I actually find that they don't transfer for me. I don't know whether that's the amount that I'm using, whether, you know, because I don't really layer that much with the pastel, so I'm not putting too much down onto the paper. You know, maybe if I did a lot more it would transfer, but I find that it doesn't. And to be honest, when I lock this down with the Zest-It, it doesn't transfer anyway, because it kind of seals everything already for you. So if you're doing the method that I am, you know, using a blend on top, I really find that it does lock it in and you don't need a fixative. But that's just my personal opinion. But yeah, that's just what I'm doing. So I don't really know when and where you would put the fixative if you are doing it, so maybe that's another video. You know, loads of other channels have talked about fixative a lot and I don't know much about it, so there's not really any point in me explaining because I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, in terms of this, obviously I do know what I'm talking about because I've done it on quite a few pages now. But yeah, so that's what I've done for that. Now I'll tell you the colours for the dragon. So I'm trying to replicate the fire dragon from Game of Thrones, and I literally just searched up a picture. I don't watch Game of Thrones, but I know that many people do, and I wanted to try and get the accuracy of that. So for this, for the flames, start with that, I've just used 4 colours. I could probably even use 3, but one of the things that I will be talking about in an upcoming video, which is the do's and don'ts of colouring, and obviously it's all my opinion, I will be showing and talking about one thing in particular, which is that you don't need many pencils for a blend. You can use minimal colours for a great and effective blend. So really, realistically, I could have just gone for 3, but I went for 4 just because I wanted the sort of orangey red here. So we have Scarlet Lake as the darkest, Poppy Red, Yellowed Orange, and finally the Deco Yellow. And I just want to reiterate, these are all Prismacolor pencils from the 150 set. So they are the flames. And then for the body of the dragon, I've only used 6 colours, which for me is quite a record. I'm really impressed with myself that I haven't used too many. So I firstly go in with black, then espresso, then chestnut, 50% warm grey, and finally henna. And the extra colour comes in with this part of the body, it's kind of the belly part. For the belly part, the only colours I use are henna, espresso, and then the blending colour for that is Deco Peach. So what I'm going to do now for you is, now that I've kind of explained all that, I'll get into a bit of a colouring chat, and I'm just going to colour a few bits for you. So I'm going to reposition so it's easier for me to colour, and we will get started. Okay, so I'm just going to colour the leg down here for you, which will show the flame and also the body, and then some of the belly part down here. So I'm firstly not going to do an underlayer base, which is something that I do usually do, but I didn't really want to for this, and I find that it works just as well. And one thing that I do want to note with the colour pencil is, again, you don't need to spend too long layering everything together, because if you're using a blender like I am, I'm using the Zest-It blend, it's really, really easy because you just go over it. So yeah, it's really, really simple. So I'm just going to start with the black, and the thing that I love about Kirby's work is it literally is already laid out for you. You have the shading, you know where to put the darker colours, and that's something that I really, really do value with his illustrations. So I'm just going in with quite heavy pressure, just going in where these darker bits are, really wanting to create that impression of light and dark, and that's something that is quite important for me. So I'm just going to put a bit down here as well. And that's literally it. Now, before I continue with the body, I want to lay down where the flame is going to be, because obviously I'm going to put a tiny bit here, like I have here. So I'm using the Deco Yellow for this, and I'm just putting the yellow, just mapping out where I'm going to have that flame, just so that I don't forget and I don't accidentally colour on that. Okay, so next I'm going to go in with espresso. Now, because I've zoomed in for you, I don't know where it's showing up, so I'm just going to tell you the names. So I'm basically just going over the black that I've already done with espresso. Really, really simple. So I'm going to go in with chestnut now, and the only bit that I'm kind of confused on here is where the foot is, but I think it's here. So again, I'm kind of just going around where I've already put colour and leaving it at that. Now the 50% warm grey comes in to kind of just put some, you know, put parts together, add another kind of layer on. I'm actually going to colour this bit. I'm not going to do it as a flame. And that's pretty much it. And then the last colour is henna. And all I do for this is I do a light layer over everything that's left, right up until those yellow bits. So that is pretty much done now. And after I've done the Zest-It blend, I do go in a bit more with the pencil if I feel it needs a bit of a touch up. That's just something that I like to do. So the only thing I'm going to do here is add a bit of warm grey, because I think this is meant to be one of the nails. I can't really see very well. Sometimes things are a bit mushed together and it's quite hard to tell. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. I'm just going to add a tiny bit more black here because I feel like it needs a bit more of a shadow. So then we're going to move on to the flames. So these are really simple blend. Not really that much layering, it's just all blending. So I'm just going to go straight in with heavy pressure where I want the darker red, which is the Scarlet Lake. And that's literally it. With some of the bigger areas, I do put the red in the middle and then feather out. But for this, I'm just doing the edges because there's not much space to really do that. So then I'm going in with the poppy red, adding a bit more of that colour. So as I said, if you want to rule out that colour, you absolutely can. You can just then go straight in with the yellowed orange, which to me is kind of the thing that binds it all together. I really like it. And usually I don't use bright colours like this, so it is really a picture that's getting out of my comfort zone. And I'm really happy and proud of myself that I am, because I'm really enjoying it. And I only started this picture yesterday, so the background out of everything, as I said, has probably taken me the longest, and I literally just started this today, and I've probably only been working on it for about an hour, I want to say, on and off. Took me quite a while to figure out what I exactly wanted to do, so I've just gone in with the Deca Yellow now, just because some of the colours I wanted to make sure were absolutely right. And to be honest, the thing that takes me the longest is the blending. You know, just getting it absolutely right. So that is all that I've done for the flames. Now, I don't blend the flames. I leave them exactly as they are because I've already burnished it. The bit that I haven't burnished is the actual body. So what I'm going to do now is go in with my Zest-It blend. Now, for this, as I mentioned before, I'm just using the cap with the Zest-It blend already in it and a new cotton bud. So it's ridiculously simple. I'm just going to tap it in. Now, I'm just dabbing it on. If there's too much, I can always dab it off. But what I don't want to do is lose this nice light bit here. So I'm kind of going to go around this bit first, doing circular motion. Now for me, I actually think this is a bit too much. So I'm just going to dab it off onto a bit of paper and continue. So you really don't need that much. And by doing it this way, you do reduce the chance of it bleeding through onto the next page. And I mean, it's not a big deal if it bleeds onto the next page. It just means that you have to let it dry. There's a risk of it maybe going a bit yellow like baby oil would, which I know some people do use for blending. So I'm just going to blend it up to that bit with the fire. And what I'm going to do is then take the dry end of the cotton bud or swab, and then just kind of blend that in with dry. And I know lots of people like to use dry cotton buds as a blender anyway. It does take a bit more time because you don't have any of the the blender like I do here. Now for this I feel like it needs a bit more of a pink tint like the top bit, so I'm going back in with the henna just over most of it, just lighten it up. And for me, you know, that's absolutely fine. The only thing that I do like to do is bring the henna into the flame a bit more, just so that it's not so out of the blue. I do find that because these colours are so contrasting, you know, you've got the bright colours up against the muted black kind of tone, it does sometimes mean that it doesn't look right sometimes going in, but by doing this it kind of helps that a bit. So that's done. Now I'm going to just move the page a bit, and I'm going to do some scales down here because these are a more accurate shape compared to the ones underneath here. So I'm going to show you these, and again they're really simple. 3 colours, just the blender, really easy. So I'm just going to grab them now. So we're going to start with the henna. So I don't go in with espresso first, I actually do go in with henna, and I do just need to grab the blender. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I do really light layering for this, and I mean it's not even that much layering to be honest, it's just that I don't want the colour to be too dark. So I'm just going in with a tiny bit like that, really simple. Okay, then I go in with the Deco Pink, and all I'm doing for this is going over what I just did. I'm not doing a light layer like I've done. I find that light layers almost can sometimes make it too muddy, especially with the blending on the body. If I was to go in with the light layer, yeah, it kind of just doesn't leave much room for highlights. So I'm now going to go in with the espresso, and this is really light. I'm just going in at the top bit to add a bit of shadow, and then going back in with the henna to go over it because you don't want the espresso to be too dark, and then finally with the Deco Peach. So this is probably the most time consuming, just because, you know, the light layers for me are important. So that is literally it. Now the cotton bud that I'm using has already been used quite a lot for other blending. Now I like this because there's a tiny bit of Zest-It left on there, but not too much. So what I did with this was, before I started using it, I rubbed off all of the excess colour and then just started using it for all of it. So there's a slight brown tint to it which I really like, and it just adds to it quite a lot. So all I'm doing for this is going over what's already there and blending into that white paper that's still there at the bottom of these kind of scaly bits. So that's all I'm doing. It's super easy. And yeah, it's done. So it's a really efficient way of blending, really easily. So I'm just going to go in a tiny bit with the henna just to add a slight more pink tint, and then go back in with the blender just to bind that in. So as I said, really easy, and that's pretty much it in terms of my colouring for the dragon. So I'm kind of just going to talk you through what I'm planning on doing for the rest of the page. So I'm going to continue as I am with the tail of the dragon and the body, and doing the exact same colours and things. Down at the bottom of the tail, I'm just going to zoom out for you. There we go. So down at the bottom of the tail, I'm going to obviously do that fire. Then with the wings, the underneath of it, I don't want to make too dark because the face is already dark, and what I'm thinking of doing is maybe having the wings a more brownish pink colour rather than having the black in there, just so that it contrasts a bit. And lots of this is obviously going to have fire because there's lots and lots of fire bits down here. The stone will probably be a grey, just to tie in with the grey that I've already got on the dragon. And then we've got little mini bits here. So we've got the playing card, and we've also got the comb here, which I'll probably do gold. They'll probably be shiny just so that they stand out. So there really isn't too much you know, left to it. All of the colours have pretty much been sorted out for me already. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with it so far. So I hope that's helped. I hope that's kind of cleared up some questions for you all. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much, Kay, for the buddy colour opportunity. So I really, really hope that if all goes well with this page, I can't wait to colour more pictures in this book. So yeah, as I said, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone. Hi everyone, so I just wanted to do this short clip to show you the actual process, because I know I mentioned it in the video, but sometimes I think it's easier to visually see what I'm doing. So this was a time lapse that I did for the last part of the picture, as you can see, which was the rocks that the fire dragon was standing on. So I rubbed the chalk pastel onto the paper, as you can see, just by rubbing a cotton pad on the chalk pastel and then transferring it to the paper. So I just did one light layer over everything, and because I coloured everything, it didn't really go over any of the colours. It was absolutely fine, so I didn't have to rub any of it out. Now, I was filming and testing on my phone for this, so my brother Tom got a tripod and I was testing it out, and it works brilliantly but overhead filming, but I'm still battling with the focus. So if any of you know how to turn autofocus off on phones, mine's a Samsung A21s, so if you know how to stop the focus, the autofocus, that would be great. So as you can see, it kind of went in and out, but basically I was using all of the warm greys from Prismacolor apart from the 90%, so it was mainly just 70, 50, 20 and 10, and I also did use espresso a tiny bit, and the bit that I did do here that I was showing to begin with, it was actually a bit too dark, so I ended up rubbing it out and then changing it and making it lighter. So this first bit that you see actually didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. I just felt because it was too dark, it kind of didn't make the dragon stand out as much as I wanted it to. So I hope this makes sense. So I'm literally just colouring over the chalk pastel, and it's really easy, and because you've got that base of the pastel, it's almost easier than the pencil because you don't have to put as many layers down, burnishes really easily. So I mainly went from dark to light colours and worked my way up, and then, as I said, I didn't have to use a pencil blender. I didn't actually use the Zest-It blend the second time round. I think in this clip I did, but yeah, I didn't actually. I decided that it didn't need it. So the colour that you see here isn't a true representation of how it actually turned out. So here I've gone in with the Zest-It blend. So as I've mentioned in the video, and as I did show, I just use a tiny bit, and I actually want to invest in a Zest-It blend sponge because it's so much easier to apply. You just dab the cotton bud onto the sponge. So I went back in with pencils because that's a great thing that you can do with the Zest-It blend. And here is the final picture. So as you can see, it's quite a lot lighter. And yeah, I had so much fun doing this colour along. Thank you so much again to Kay for offering to do the buddy colour with me. And I hope you enjoyed this video, as I already mentioned in the other clip, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone!